All right, welcome everyone to the UCAN College Fair. My name is Layla Vera. I am with the Sacramento County Office of Education, and more particularly the Cal SOAP Consortium here in Sacramento. We are housed underneath the umbrella of the California Student Aid Commission, or formerly known as CSAC. And so we are here to demystify the financial aid process. I do have a colleague with me today. His name is AJ Ellis, and I will have him introduce himself.
Yes, so I'm also here with you guys today to give you some information about the financial aid process. As Ms. Layla mentioned, my name is AJ Ellis, and I am the academic coordinator for the CalSOAP program with Sacramento County Office of Education.
Perfect. So to get us started, you guys, we want you guys to have lots of energy because you are here as students and parents to learn about how to get free money for college. So the question is, who needs money for college? So I'm hoping there's lots of hands raised in your living rooms, in your kitchens, in your bedrooms, because that's why you're here. Today, we have lots of great information for you. We're going to teach you how to apply for financial aid. We're going to tell you some secrets behind the process. We want you to understand where the money comes from and how it gets to you and inside your pockets. We will share some great scholarship tips. We will talk about some special programs that we have. And then ultimately, we want to leave you with an opportunity to guide you through the application process for free. We have Cash for College workshops that we hold. So we're going to share with you that information as well.
So you guys are probably wondering how you get access to all that money that's out there through the federal government and the state government. The two applications that you're going to want to know about are going to be number one, the Fafsa application, which is going to be for the majority of our students, and then for the CADA application, which is going to be for our students who don't have Social Security numbers. So the Fafsa is the free application for federal student aid. The CADA is the California Dream Act application. Now, these applications are the student's responsibility to complete, but they will require some parent information. And to go into further detail on those applications, we have the Fafsa.ed.gov, which is going to be, of course, for your Fafsa application. You want to keep in mind that there are some different websites out there that are going to look similar, like Fafsa.com, different things of that nature, but those aren't the correct website. You want to make sure you're on Fafsa.ed.gov, and this is what it's going to look like. If you're a returning user, meaning you've already logged in and you've completed portions of the application, you would, of course, click on returning user login. If it's going to be your first time starting the application, then they've got a slightly different process, and you click that top Start Here button. Now, for the California Dream Act, this is what this is going to look like. And of course, again, this is for our students who don't have Social Securities or aren't permanent residents. Students without permanent Social Security number or DACA students fill out the Dream Act application. The major difference between this application and the FAFSA, when completing the FAFSA, you are applying, and we'll get into what this means a little bit later on, but you are going to be applying for federal and state aid. With this CADA, this Dream Act application, you're applying just for state aid. So one of the benefits of living in California is you have access to state aid, regardless of if you're a citizen or not. So the website's going to be down there, dream.csac.ca.gov, and to the right there, that's what it's going to look like. Now, some dates to keep in mind about this application. You can start applying October 1st of each year. You do want to keep in mind for the students that you do have to apply for this application each year you're in college, in addition to your senior year of high school, and it's going to open up each year October 1st. The deadline, which is coming up here in a couple of weeks, is going to be March 2nd. So if you have students, or if you're a senior in high school right now and you haven't completed the financial aid application, you do know that you have a couple weeks to meet the priority registration deadline. And also keep in mind, when you log into this application, it's going to give you the option to apply for the 2021 school year or the 21-22 school year. And you're going to want to select 21-22, because keep in mind, 21 of your fall is your first semester in college, and then 22 of spring is going to be your second semester in college. So 21-22. And then again, you want to make sure that you are remembering to reapply, to update the information each year you're in college. Okay, now there are a few different ways to access the application. Of course, the most traditional and probably the easiest way to make sure you take care of everything is going to be through the website, the FAFSA.gov website, from a laptop or computer. But let's say you don't have access to a laptop or a computer, they also have an app. Seems like there's an app for everything these days. So there is an app to complete the application on your phone. It's the My Student Aid app. And so I would say this app is more convenient for if you want to check on your student aid report and you maybe submit corrections and those types of things. But in terms of completing the application, it might be easiest to do that from a computer. But there are some different options here in terms of if you don't have access to a laptop or a computer, but you do have the smartphone, you can access your application from the app. Okay, now a couple of tips for filling the FAFSA out. The first thing that you guys want to make sure you do, and this is going to be for the parent and the student, is you want to make sure you create an FSA ID. So the FSA ID will serve as how you log into the application to begin, and also how you sign the application at the end. So that signature is why also the parent needs one, because the parent needs to sign the application and the student needs to sign the application. So we usually tell students and parents before they get started with the application, what you want to do is create this FSA ID, because that typically is going to make the process a lot smoother. And we have the website there, fsaid.ed.gov is going to be how you create that account. And this is what it looks like. So you know you're on the right website if you see this. You'll see a tab for create an FSA ID. So of course you fill in that information if you're just creating your FSA ID. Or sometimes we run into a situation where maybe the password's been forgotten or the username's been forgotten. That's where you would log on to this website and then you go to manage my FSA ID. So the two options there, either to create if you haven't created one already, or to manage if you're trying to access some information or update your password. And here we have a QR code. So if you hover your phone, the camera option on your phone over this screen right here, it'll bring you to a list that has the 6 steps to completing the FSA ID. So if you're a senior right now and you haven't completed this process, or you're a parent and you haven't completed this process yet, you have a senior, but you haven't created one for the parent, you'll probably want to hover over this and it's going to give you the 6 steps to taking care of this FSA ID.
All right, you guys, let's talk about how financial need is calculated. So do you remember earlier when I said I was going to share a secret? This is the secret I want to share. This is the information that a lot of us don't find out until years later. So if you have a pen and pencil available and a piece of paper, or maybe if you just want to take a picture of the screen, COA minus EFC equals financial need is the magic equation. This is the secret behind financial aid. Students and families often ask us, how do they know how much I need? And am I going to always get the same amount of money every year? So in order for financial aid to determine your need, they need to know your college plans. So they need to figure out what kinds of schools you might want to apply to. Are you applying to community colleges, CSUs, UCs? Are you going out of state? Are you looking to apply to HBCU? So they are going to ask you some questions about your college plans to figure out your cost of attendance. So they have to figure out how much is it going to cost for Mr. Ellis to go to college, so his cost of attendance. Then the FAFSA is going to, and the CADA is going to ask you questions about your financial situation. How much money comes into your home? How many people live there? What kinds of properties do you own? So lots of great questions to figure out your estimated family contribution. Can your family contribute to your education? So they're going to take how much it's going to cost for you to go to school. They're going to subtract what they think that your parents can help support you with based on the information you share to determine your financial need. It's important, you guys, for you to understand that every student and family's financial need could be different. My financial situation is different than AJ's financial situation. So how much money he gets and how much money I get could definitely differ. But for everyone who does a FAFSA or a California Dream Act, they're going to ask you these questions to determine how much money you need. So let's talk about each of those. So the first one I want to share about is your cost of attendance. This is the number that really freaks us out as parents, sometimes us out as students, when you hear things like it costs $23,000 a year to go to a CSU, or $34,000 a year to go to a UC, or maybe $30,000 to $60,000 to go to a private school or an out-of-state school, and you guys freak out and you're like, oh my gosh, times 4, how am I going to be able to afford that? So we help families and students understand one thing. There are pieces of the cost of attendance that we don't have control over. And then there are pieces of the cost of attendance that we do have control over. So if you look at this list, this is what they're calculating, how much it's going to cost for a student to attend college for an entire year. That's why we're looking at $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 a year. So they're looking at tuition and fees for a whole year, your housing. So there's a question on the FAFSA and the CADA that asks, do you plan to live on campus in the dorms, off campus, like maybe with a house or an apartment with roommates? Or are you going to live with your parents? Because they need to figure out how much are you going to spend on housing. Same thing for books, your food for a whole year, your transportation for a whole year, personal expenses for a whole year. So I tell families, we don't have control over tuition and fees. CSUs, UCs, out-of-states, private schools, colleges determine their tuition and fees. But we as families have a lot of control over where we live, where we shop, what we eat, how we get to and from places. So I tell families, when you're looking at that big sticker price, it doesn't always cost that much. And this is where I really remind students that no matter where you go to school, the reality is most of us will have to work part-time in order to help pay for some of these personal expenses, okay? When we look at EFC, you guys, or estimated family contribution, we're talking about the amount of money that a student in the family can reasonably contribute to a student's education. So the federal government and the state of California, and really most states, really feel like it's our parents' responsibility to pay for our college education. But they understand that not every family and parent has the means to do so. So they ask us questions on the FAFSA about our income to determine, based on our income, based on how many people live with us, based on lots of different information, can my parents reasonably contribute any amount of money to my education? So your EFC is calculated for you, and it can be anywhere from 0 to 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. It could go up, 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 depending on your family's financial situation. But I tell families this, if you do get an EFC, it's not a bill, it's not something that you pay, that you owe anybody. The financial aid office is just saying, we're not going to worry about that $5,000 or that $6,000. We're going to worry about the big need at the end. So let me show you some examples to kind of help you understand. You will find out your expected family contribution when you submit your FAFSA. So as soon as you submit your FAFSA, a confirmation page comes up, and at the bottom it will say estimated expected family contribution, and it will give you your EFC. So I tell families this, if you know your EFC, you could Google your cost of attendance for UC Davis, cost of attendance for, for University of Nevada, Reno, cost of attendance for CRC, cost of attendance for ARC, and you can subtract that EFC to kind of already get an idea of what you might get. So that's the secret. But here, let me give you some examples. So here we have our cost of attendance minus our estimated family contribution and our financial need. So these numbers at the top represent the cost of attendance for universities. So Sac City, Sac State, we also have UOP here in our example. I did my FAFSA. My estimated family contribution came back to $3,000. So if I was planning to go to Sac State, my cost of attendance is $26,000. My estimated family contribution is $3,000. So my financial need is $23,000. So this is what financial aid is responsible for. It's their job to help me find that $23,000. Now, what happens if I want to go to UC Davis? I'm a really smart student. I take AP and honors classes. I have a really good GPA, and I apply to Davis and I get in. $37,000. My EFC doesn't change. Just because I got into UC Davis doesn't mean my family just magically makes more money. So my EFC is subtracted, and now they have to find me $34,000 worth of money. Same thing for UOP. $68,000 could roughly be anywhere between a private school and maybe an out-of-state school if I had to pay out-of-state tuition. Again, my EFC doesn't change, and now they're looking at finding me $65,000. So I want you to understand that your estimated family contribution doesn't change just because you got into a higher level university. So we encourage all of our students, if you're that student who works really hard, who takes AP and honors classes, who has lots of A's and B's, have a really strong GPA, to not only apply to community colleges, but to apply to multiple universities. Now, here's a question we get. What if my estimated family contribution comes back to zero? Do they have to find me the whole amount? And the answer is yeah, they do. So whatever your estimated family contribution is, they're going to subtract it, and then whatever's left is what your financial need is. So yes, if you do get a EFC of zero, then most likely you will have your entire financial need met. Now, where does this money come from? So if I need $30,000 and AJ needs $60,000 because he's going to a more expensive school, how are they going to find all of this money? So I tell students, think of a FAFSA or financial aid being in this huge warehouse, and they have these three different pots of money. They have the free money everybody talks about, the grants that you don't have to pay back. They have borrowed money because student loans are part of financial aid. And then they have work study money. And in order to ensure you have what you need, they go into each of these pots of money and they package it up really pretty and they show it to you. That's one of the beautiful things about financial aid is for every school that you apply to and that you get into, they're going to show you the money. And ultimately, you get to decide what money you take and what money you don't take. So let me tell you what money is in there. Just for filling out your FAFSA or your CADA, you are eligible for grants, you are eligible for work study, and you're eligible for loans. Scholarships and special programs are kind of on the outside, and we'll talk about those. But just for doing your FAFSA or your CADA, you're eligible for grants, work study, and student loans. So here in California, if you decide to stay here, we have a thing called the Cal Grant. And the Cal Grant is for our students who decide to attend a California college. All you have to do is complete your FAFSA or your CADA. Your high schools send over your GPA. So your Cal Grant is based on your GPA and based on your need. So they send over your GPA to the Cal Grant office, to CSAC. Then you complete your FAFSA or your CADA, and that information gets over to CSAC. And then they determine, based on your GPA and your financial situation, which Cal Grant you qualify for. So I love California, you guys, because it gives money to every type of student. So if you're awarded a Cal Grant A, you are a student who's headed right from high school to a four-year university. You have a 3.0 or higher GPA. You are middle income based on your FAFSA or your CADA. And if you are awarded this, you guys, it will pay for all of your tuition at a CSU or a UC for 4 years. That's 4-year college education, 100% free. Cal Grant B is for a student who's lower income, who maybe is headed to a community college or a four-year university, who has a 2.0 or higher. And look at this one. This one pays for your tuition plus gives you an additional living expense stipend. So remember when I said you needed to make sure your tuition was paid for? Cal Grant would pay for that, Cal Grant B, and then Cal Grant B would give you $1,600 to help buy food, gas, books, whatever it is that you needed. And then Cal Grant C, you guys, is for a student who's not interested in going to school forever. They want to go to a community college or a vocational school. They want to earn a certificate, learn a career, and then go on and enter the workforce. There is no set GPA, and California will help pay a little over $1,000 for that program. So if you're taking notes, if you're writing things down, I always tell students Cal Grant equals tuition assistance. So their whole goal is to help you pay for tuition. So I always tell our students, we are Cal SOAP, so we talk about California schools, but you want to weigh your options. You know, if California is going to pay your tuition and we're in this, you know, unique time of being in a pandemic, you might want to see what's available. But if you are still interested in going out of state, headed to an HBCU, there are lots of federal money too that you can take with you in the other parts of the United States. Now, Cal Grant is based on, like I said, your income and your GPA. So this is the 21-22 Cal Grant program income ceilings. So a lot of times families and students will ask us, how much is too much? Like, how much do I have to earn? And so what we did for you is there is a QR code, just like AJ mentioned earlier. Go ahead and hover your camera over. It's actually going to pull up this picture that I have right here that'll kind of give you an idea of what the income and asset ceilings are for the Cal Grant. So it'll kind of answer some questions about that too. But if you have questions about Cal Grant, you guys hit the Q&A and we will definitely answer those for you. And then a few years ago, you guys, California came back to the table and they said, you know what? We still have families that are having a really hard time sending their students to college. So they came up with this thing called the middle class scholarship. The middle class scholarship is not a traditional scholarship because there's no separate application. Just by completing your FAFSA or your CADA, you become eligible for this scholarship. So I like to call it a coupon. So what it does is it gives 10 to 40% off of our CSU and UC tuition to our upper middle class families, okay? So for example, maximum award for middle class scholarship is $22.98. So tuition at a CSU is $5,472. So it doesn't pay exactly half, but it could pay up to 40% off. Same thing with UC. UC tuition, I think, is like $12,634. The middle class scholarship will pay up to $5,000. So again, it's not 100% tuition assistance like Cal Grant, but it is giving you a percentage off. So this is a visual. So Cal Grant A, B, and C typically helps families who make $0 to about $90,000, $100-ish thousand. And then our middle class scholarship comes in and helps those families who make up to $184,000. So this number right here, you guys, increases every year. So California is saying we would like to support as many families as we can and help ensure that our students' tuition is paid for. Okay. And then our federal grants, these are grants that you're eligible for completing the FAFSA or the CADA, actually just the FAFSA. These are the ones that you are going to be able to take wherever it is you want. So our Pell Grant is our biggest grant right now. It's at $6,345. You guys, this grant typically goes up at least $100 every year. This year, for whatever reason, it jumped up at least $200. So that also tells you that our federal government is invested in ensuring that our students do have money for college. This you can take with you. You could stay here in California. You can take it out of state. And same thing with the FSEOG grant. So this Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant is about $4,000, and it's typically offered to students who are very significantly low income. And so this one is a first come, first serve money. So the earlier you apply for financial aid, the more opportunity you have to earn more money. And then remember, you could be awarded multiple grants. So a student here could get a Cal Grant that pays their tuition, plus get this Pell Grant and this FSEOG grant. So you can receive multiple grants to help not only pay for your tuition, but pay for your living expenses as you go to college as well. And then the last pot of money that is kind of free and clear, if you want to think about it that way, is work study. So there is a question on the FAFSA that is going to ask you if you are interested in work study. Definitely want to say yes. Work study is a federal program that allows you to work part-time on or off campus with your college, super flexible, and it allows you to work tax-free. So if you are students and families here, and you are aware that when you work, taxes get taken out of your paycheck, this is an opportunity for you to earn anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000 tax-free. I tell students, if you see this on your financial aid award, this isn't a large lump sum of money like your Cal Grant or like your Pell Grant. I tell students this is your pocket money. So you would work, get a paycheck, this is what you use for like your Starbucks or your pizza or toilet paper, shampoo, that kind of stuff. But it is a great program, and there are a ton of jobs on campus, off campus that you have access to. So yes, please say yes on the question, are you interested in work study?
So federal student loans, the part you guys are probably all the most excited about. Miss Layla just finished telling you guys about the aid that you don't have to pay back, right? Your state and your federal grants. So the most exciting thing about loans is you do have to pay these back, right? So a lot of students, there's a stigma around loans. That I think students don't like taking loans out. And for the most part, you probably do want to try to minimize the amount of debt that you get into. But if you're ever going to borrow money, I would say a good time to do that is as a student. There's a few reasons why. As you guys see, there's lower interest rates. So your interest rate as a student is going to be between 4 and 6%. There are some different loan options. We're going to talk about the subsidized, the unsubsidized, and the Parent Plus loans. You also get up to 10 years to pay back your student loans. And that time doesn't start counting until after you graduate from college. And then when you look at the average student loan debt of 22,000, that usually can get paid for, over the first 5 years that a student is working full time, or once they've graduated. So a few different benefits, and now we're going to get into what the different types of loans are. So with your student loans, as we mentioned, there's the subsidized, and the unsubsidized loan. The subsidized loan is going to be the first option because the government is going to be paying for the interest while the student is in school. So basically, if you borrow $2,000, by the time you graduate, you're still going to owe $2,000 because the government is paying for the interest. Whereas if you take an unsubsidized loan, which is typically what you take if you've already gone through undergraduate school and maybe you're going through grad school now, so you only have access to unsubsidized loans. But if you borrow $2,000 in an unsubsidized loan, then by the time you graduate, unless you're making payments on it, it might be around $3,000 that you owe. So if you have the option between a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan, you definitely want to go the subsidized route. And then in addition to the student loans, there's also the Parent Plus loans, and those loans go underneath the parent's name. So payments on those begin immediately. There's no grace period until the student graduates. And those Parent Plus loans are going to be based on the parent's credit score. So the interest that accrues, again, is going to be based on the credit score. So those are going to be your different types of federal loans, the student loans, and then your Parent Plus loans. Now, the money we just referred to between your state, your federal grants, and then the federal loans, that's all money that you are eligible for by applying for the financial aid application or the CADA application, which leaves you eligible for the state grants. Now with scholarships are going to be separate. Scholarships you apply for individually. Now, you may receive money from your federal and your state grants, but this can be in addition to that money, right? A couple things that you're going to need to complete your scholarships are going to be an essay. The nice thing about the essay is usually scholarships are going to be asking similar questions. So you might be able to have one essay that you use to apply to a scholarship, and you can use that essay to apply for multiple scholarships. You're also going to want to need a transcript, a letter of recommendation. So we usually tell our juniors to start asking for letters of recommendation so you're already ready. And then you're also going to need a resume. Now, in terms of all the different scholarships that are out there, it's usually just about the amount of time that students want to put into applying for scholarships. There's thousands of scholarships that can be applied for. Some of them are going to be need-based, so they're looking at your income, the student's income or the parent income, similar to financial aid. Some of them are going to be merit-based, where they're looking at what the student has accomplished in terms of their grades. They're going to be career scholarships, ethnic background. They look at extracurricular activities. And as I mentioned, you're going to want to keep your essays because you can use one essay to apply for multiple scholarships. Some resources that you guys can look to if you're a student, a senior or junior out there in high school, you can ask your counselor at school. They're probably going to be able to point you into the direction of some local scholarships. Your career center on campus will probably have information about scholarships. And then once a student gets to college, so you've applied to Sac State, you've gotten in, you've accepted your admissions. Each university has different scholarships out there that you can also apply to. But one thing you want to keep in mind is you do want to avoid the scams because some scholarship applications are going to ask you for money or credit card information. That's probably not a scholarship you want to apply to. The majority of scholarships are going to be free of charge. So try to avoid any scholarship or any financial aid application that's asking you for credit card information because all that stuff is free to apply to. Now, once you're done with the FAFSA application and you've applied to some scholarships, there are still some things you want to keep in mind. There's an after the FAFSA process. The biggest part of the after the FAFSA process is to review your student aid report. So that student aid report is going to get emailed to you usually 2 to 3 days after you submit your application. And it's going to be a summary of all the information you put on that financial aid application. So you want to make sure you review that. And if there's any mistakes, you can go in and make FAFSA corrections. There's also going to be a California aid report, which we're going to talk about here on the next slide. But again, this is going to be your opportunity to review, see what aid you're eligible for, and make corrections if necessary. So with the California aid report, the CAR I referred to, that's going to be specifically referring to your state eligibility. So in addition to wanting to review your STAR, your student aid report, to check for mistakes, you're also going to want to create a Cal Grant account. And that Cal Grant account through webgrantsforstudents.org is going to give you access to your state eligibility. So again, that CAR, you can review that CAR, that California aid report, because that's going to let you know all the information that you put in the state portion of your financial aid application. And it's going to allow you to make updates to the college you list on your the first college you list on your financial aid application. So let's say that you listed San Jose State as your first school on your financial aid application. That's going to be the school that's listed on your Cal Grant account. So if you don't end up going to San Jose State, then you want to make sure that you update that information through that account. They're going to ask you to verify your high school graduation. So you go in and just check a box saying, yes, I've graduated. And it's also going to give you the opportunity to update any personal information that you might need to update.
The one thing I want to add, you guys, is that you can create this web grants account fairly soon after you do your FAFSA, which a lot of times students are able to look to see what Cal Grant they received before they're able to see their whole financial aid award. So it's a great next step for sure. So speaking of next steps, after you complete your FAFSA and your CADA, all of that information when you push submit gets sent out to your colleges. And I want you to think of your colleges as your little banks. They're the ones who are actually packaging your money, is what they call it. So for most of our seniors right now, you applied in October and November, maybe in January a little bit if you're applying to some private schools or out-of-state schools. But each school has an opportunity for you guys to create a portal, a student portal. It's a username and a password, a little website page that belongs to you. And once you create that portal, that's how the colleges talk to you. So they email you and say, congratulations, we got your application. Here are the steps to create your portal. Make sure that you do create those, that you're checking them at least once a week right now. So if you applied to 10 schools, you got 10 portals. If you have 5 schools, you got 5 portals. But this is where not only are you going to see your admissions decision, but this is where they're going to post your financial aid award. So remember when I said that every school you get into, they're going to show you the money. So if I applied to 10 and I get into 5 schools are going to post in my portal what financial aid they're going to offer me. And a lot of times students and families use this award to determine where they're going to go. And students and families typically choose a college that gives them the most money. So let me show you what an award looks like. So for this student, they're headed to a CSU in California. Here is their mathematical equation, COA minus EFC. So they needed $23,000. So this university had to go into their pots of money to ensure that this person had $23,000. So they got a CSU university grant to help pay for tuition. They got a Cal Grant B, remember that, living expenses. They got a Pell Grant. Now, what I forgot to mention about the Pell Grant is the Pell Grant, you could get the whole pie or a piece of the pie. So if you remember, the full Pell Grant is $6,300 and something dollars, right? This person didn't get the whole pie, but they did get a lot of it. So they got about $5,900. The student was awarded $3,000 in work study, $3,500 in subsidized loan, a $2,000 in unsubsidized loan, and a very small Parent Plus loan. So you'll see these yeses and nos. Basically, once you see all of your financial aid award letters from each of the schools you got into, you're going to compare and contrast. Which one do I want? Where do I see myself going? Do I have enough money to cover all of my expenses? And then ultimately, once you choose, it's your job as a student to accept and reject your awards. So you literally go down the list and you say yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes, no, no. So we tell students Cal Grant, anytime you see grant, that's free. So it definitely say yes, yes to Cal Grant, yes to the Pell Grant, Yes, just to remember, work study is a federal program, no taxes. Now, this is where we talk to students about, okay, what about loans? So I tell students there are three things you need to make sure that you have covered: your tuition, your random university fees. Every university, no matter where you go, has random fees that range anywhere between 800 and 1500 bucks. And your housing, you need to make sure that you have a place to live. Things like your food, your toilet paper, your gas, pencils, pens. That's why I mentioned earlier part-time jobs are super important, because that stuff you can work a part-time job and help support yourself that way. Or if your parents are generous, maybe they send you a monthly allowance or care packages that'll help with that. But when we start thinking about student loans, we only want to borrow what we need. So one of the things I want you to know is student loans and Parent Plus loans are modifiable. So if you don't need $3,500, but you need 2,000, only borrow that 2,000. We also recommend that if students are unsure about the loans, whether or not they're going to need them right now, that you don't accept them or you don't reject them. You just kind of let them chill. What that does is it ensures that that money is available to you all year long. So if you're out of state or you're down the street or you're 3 hours, 6 hours away and something happens, your laptop breaks down, your car gets broken into, you lose your books, you break your phone, whatever it is that happens when life happens, that we could always go back to that financial aid office and say, hey, you know what? Remember that $3,000 you were going to borrow? Let me borrow. I actually need some because I had an emergency. Okay. So know that every school that you get into is going to show you the money, that you as a student ultimately get to decide what money you take and what money you don't take. And that, remember, as long as if you have to borrow to ensure your education is complete, that it's okay. But as long as you only borrow what you need, you shouldn't get yourself in too much trouble. Okay.
And I would add to that, if we can go back for 1 second, you guys see this cost of attendance. It's an estimated cost of attendance here at the top, the $26,000 number. But if you guys remember earlier in the presentation, Layla talked about different ways to bring that number down. So just because you see this huge $26,000 number, don't have to be intimidated by that, because there are different ways that you can save money to drop that down to maybe 20,000. And all of a sudden now your EFC is kind of eliminated because you've dropped your cost of attendance. So that's going to be your award notification. But again, there are ways to bring that cost of attendance down. Now, in addition to all the funding we just talked about, that's going to be typically from the state and federal government, each specific institution, if we go specifically to the institutions, they also have special programs that provide funding and assistance for tuition. So at the community college, if you're local to Sacramento and you're thinking about going to maybe Sac City or a CRC or Folsom Lake, something along those lines, you have access to two different grants. One of them is going to be the California College Promise Grant, formerly known as the Bach Fee Waiver. And that's going to be for anybody who's looking to go to the community college, whether you're going back to school, you've already been to college, you took a break, and different kind of situations, you're going to be eligible to apply for the College Promise Grant. But that is going to be income based. So they look at your income and determine if you qualify for that grant. If you do, that's going to cover your tuition. Now, in addition to the Promise Grant, they also have similarly named the California Promise Program. Now, this program is also going to pay for your tuition, your first 2 years of tuition, but there are a couple of stipulations. A couple of the stipulations are you have to be a full-time student, and so you must maintain at least 12 units, and you must be a first-time enrollee into college. So typically, this is going to be for our graduating seniors. So if you're a senior right now and you've never enrolled into college before, you're going to be eligible for the Promise program, and you're going to be able to get 2 years of your tuition paid for. Now, again, keep in mind, this is also a part of the financial aid application. So by submitting your FAFSA or your CADA, you have access to that Promise program, and there's no income ceiling on that. So the income can be $500,000 from the parents, and you can still have access to this Promise program. The community colleges also have the EOP&S, Extended Opportunity and Programs and Services. That's a program that you apply to separately from the college, but it is a good program. They typically focus on low-income first-generation students, but they can also provide tuition assistance or assistance with buying books, academic services like counseling. So that's another great program. So those are some of the special programs that are available if you're thinking about going to the community college.
And then, you guys, I just want to add, it's for any community college in California. So if you're not wanting to stay local here in Sacramento, you could take it down south. You could, go to the Bay Area. It's any community college.
Now, in terms of the California state universities, right? So local to us, it's going to be Sac State. But again, if you're thinking about going down to Southern California, you got San Diego State and Channel Islands and those types of CSUs. If you're thinking about going to one of those schools, they have what they call the State University Grant or a SUG, intended to cover fees at the college. Now, this is typically going to come into play if you're not eligible for a Cal Grant. So just another form of tuition coverage, tuition assistance. And then similar to EOP&S at the community college, the CSUs have a program called EOP, Educational Opportunity Program, and it's going to provide some tuition assistance and again, offer you services like counseling or academic services, different things like that. And they also focus on low-income first-generation students. So another program that students can apply to in addition to their college applications. So like I mentioned, we're getting specific into some of these colleges, but we have the programs for your community colleges. We have your programs for your CSUs, like your Sac State, your Fresno State, your San Jose State. We also have the programs for the UCs. So University of California, like our UC Davis or UCLA or Cal Berkeley. Their special assistance program is referred to as the Blue and Gold Grant. And that's going to help cover some tuition and fees. Family income should be 80,000 or less to get access to that grant. And you're going to be eligible more than likely if you're a California resident, but you're going to qualify for the Cal Grant first. So again, in addition to your state aid, your federal aid, your loans that we referred to, the different universities have different programs that you can apply for within the program. And then a couple of last minute tips for completing the FAFSA. Again, as we mentioned early on, it's going to give you the option to select either the 2021 application or the 21-22 application. For your guys' purposes, if you're a senior this year, you're going to be applying for the 21-22 application because you want to think about it. Fall of 21 is going to be your first semester in college, and then spring of 22 is going to be your second semester. In terms of reporting schools, right? Let's say you have a list of schools that you want to send your financial aid information to. You can add up to 10 schools on your application at a time. And then what you'd want to do if you have more than 10 schools, you would submit your application, you would review your student aid report, and then you'd go in and make corrections. And then from there, you can take off schools that have already received your application, and then you can add more schools. So initially, you can only list up to 10, but you can go and make corrections to add more. One thing that you'll want to do when you're adding those schools is list a California school first. So we talked about that Cal Grant account. Whatever school you list first, if it's a California school, will be what's listed under your Cal Grant account. So you want to make sure you list a California school first so that Cal Grants know you're thinking about a California school. But if you don't end up going to that top school, then that's when you can go into your Cal Grant account and make those corrections to make sure that the proper school gets your Cal Grant information. Another thing to keep in mind for this year's application is they want 2019 information. So they call it prior tax year. So not your 2020 tax info, they want your 2019 tax info. And if you can, there's an option. One way to make that application a lot easier to complete is to utilize the IRS data retrieval toolkit. And basically what that does, we talked about those FSA IDs and why it's important for a parent to have one as well. If the parent has created their FSA ID, they can plug that into your student's financial aid application. And then what will happen is if it works out, it doesn't always work out, but if it does work out, the financial aid application will pull your tax info from the IRS website and upload everything automatically. So you don't have to go in and manually look at your tax documents and import the information. So if you do have the option to import or to utilize the data retrieval toolkit, that's going to make the process a lot easier. And also it's going to make the process less likely to get pulled for verification. So some applications, once you're done with your FAFSA and you've submitted it, some applications get flagged for verification, meaning you got to submit additional documentation to verify some of the information you submitted. If you're able to use that retrieval toolkit, you're less likely to get flagged for verification. And then finally, when you submit your application, you're going to get a confirmation page that'll pop up. This will get emailed to you, but it's also a good idea to print that confirmation page and save for your own records. So I usually tell students to have like a folder that they're putting all their college information to. You also want to have a folder that you're putting all your financial aid information to. So it's a good idea to add that confirmation page to that folder.
And then you guys, I know we should have shared a ton of information about financial aid and how it works and the form. What I want to share next is about our Cash for College Coalition. So we are the coordinating organization here in the Sacramento area who host the Cash for College workshops. When we are not in a situation in which we're having to do distance learning, we do these at our local high schools in person. This year they are all virtual, which is easier in the sense that you guys have a ton more options to choose from. But these are free workshops, you guys. We have experts, professional, myself and AJ are at many of them. We do a line-by-line presentation of the FAFSA, line-by-line presentation of the CADA. We have experts who will meet with families in breakout rooms to make sure that your FAFSA is submitted and completed on time. There's just, it has been very successful in helping our students who are just a little bit stuck or confused, or they're just not sure what our next steps to come, and kind of like I literally say, this is where you put your name, this is where you put your social, is everybody with me? Like, we actually make sure that everything gets done. We'll help you with the IRS data retrieval tool to make sure that it works. So it's free financial aid. FAFSA CADA completion workshops where the goal is to submit it. It's not like today where I'm sharing information. It's like, okay, let me see, share your screen, let's get it done, let's get it submitted. So we do have one coming up next week, you guys. So if you hover your camera phone over our QR code, our last chance workshop is actually going to be hosted by Rio Linda High School. It's going to be next Wednesday from 6 to 8. It will be virtual via Zoom. Once you're able to get that last chance flyer with the QR code, there is a click here that will allow you to join next Wednesday from 6 to 8. Myself and AJ will be there. We'll have financial aid experts there that can help you get it submitted. It's also before the March 2nd deadline, you guys, so you could definitely get it done and submitted. We don't leave any man behind. We will stay to ensure that you guys get it submitted and that you get it submitted properly.
And I'll actually be presenting at that workshop. So if you're enjoying this presentation and my portions of it, you might want to check that one out because I'll be presenting there too.
And then you guys, we just have some resources for you. This is our FAFSA checklist. CalSoap put together kind of everything we just told you, but in a checklist. So we have students, download it with the QR code, take a screenshot of it so you have it, so your first step is to do your FAFSA, your second step is to review your SAR, your third step is to do your web grants account. So it kind of breaks it down for you. There's deadlines on there, there's website links, like it gives you all, if you could finish that checklist by the end of your senior year or through the summer, you're definitely on point. It ensures that your money is processed in time for you to get it for when school starts. We also have a California Dream Act checklist, you guys. So this is for our dreamers. These are for students who are completing the California Dream Act application. Very similar checklist as the FAFSA checklist, except it's really specific to the CADA, the California Dream Act application. So it does give you next steps and websites, deadlines. Great resource to have for sure. And then my name is Layla. I am the college advising coordinator for CalSoap. And then you got to just hear from Mr. AJ Ellis. He is the academic program coordinator for CalSoap. And so please, that is our contact information. Feel free to email us with questions. We actually like the hard questions because it helps us kind of, keep our skills on tip-top shape. And then also if you have, need any support completing your FAFSA or your CADA, we highly, highly recommend that you follow us on Instagram at Sacramento CalSoap. We post reminders, we post lots of, upcoming events. We're definitely there to support you guys that way too. So you'll get some really cool information in your feed.